inside, I have seen a world that no man should see.
With all due respect, I discovered that portal.
It's my head, Schwartz. It's my head.
You see, Maxine, it isn't just playing with dolls.
Oh, my darling, it's so much more. It's playing with people.
Good morning. My name is Charles. It's jolly good to be back. Welcome to Jared to Jared. On this week's episode, the Jareds will discuss the movie, being John Malkovich, the Cube personality test, archetypes, and much, much more. Log in and ready up.
What did you think of Malkovich?
I love that movie.
So fucked up.
It had been a long time, and Dion was like, "You guys should do a Malkovich recap." I was like, "Man, I haven't seen that movie in a while."
Yeah,
it's wild. It's wild. And tell me this: does it bother you? Is it too explained? Are the tropes in it too apparent? I was thinking today, like the gender thing and stuff, like they don't let the audience figure it out. Like there's that scene with Cameron Diaz where she's like, I'm transgender now and this and that. Like, I think the subtlety of it all, it's not like very subtle. It's all like explained to you, like where in a different way to have done all those tropes would be in a way to allow the person or the audience member to like discover them on their own, right? Instead, it's like plainly stated, like, oh, this is a joke on race. This is a joke on gender.
Right.
Take on marriage or whatever, right? I don't know. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's not something that came to mind. I could see that, I could see that argument. That makes sense to me. But it didn't bother me, it's not something that came to mind for me. Yeah, but I see what you're saying for sure.
Yeah. It was also making me think of what we were talking about a few episodes ago, and in the how we like why do we categorize ourselves?
Yeah,
in order to like find identification. And there's that good scene with Cameron Diaz. First time she goes into Malkovich, she comes out and she's like, I finally know who I am. I for the first time, I like know who I am. I know. And he's like, yeah, you were John Malkovich. And like, that's totally like the manifestation of our conversation. Was the only time like in American society or like, oftentimes individuals think they know themselves is by categorizing themselves and like, I'm a musician, I'm this, I'm that,
right.
I'm Prince, the artist formerly known as Prince, right?
Right.
Like, I finally know who I am. I'm a teacher, blah, blah, blah. It's like, and this is the same thing. It's like, well, you don't know who you are. You're just categorizing yourself or identifying with something that's a very subjective category, right? Yeah. And even with her, the only thing I finally know myself. It's like, well, you don't know yourself at all, actually. You were John Malkovich in that moment. You weren't,
Right. So actually this like psychology game comes to mind that let's talk about Malkovich, but then let's come back to this. It's like a series of questions and visualizations that kind of show you to yourself, and it'll be fun to like ask you those questions.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Before the end of the pod, we'll come back to that. But yeah, no, I see what you're saying. It definitely plays with like the limitations of identity. And that's kind of the whole point, which is, but in this absurdist way. I mean, I always think of Charlie Kaufman, the guy who wrote it. He's like the David Foster Wallace of film.
He is.
Right. I mean, even the main character looks like David Foster Wallace. Like,
right.
Like something about Charlie Kaufman and DFW. There's just a lot of parallels there where they're both these kind of like
The infinite
postmodern
jest.
absurdists. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
In the 90s, like they do this like self-deprecating thing. They're both like kind of hyper intellectual.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, just something weird. I feel like they're like twins or something.
I really like that. I really like that. Man,
Yeah.
Charlie, at the end of the credits and it rolled, I was like, of course, Charlie Kaufman. Who else would have
Oh
wrote
yeah.
this
Yeah.
movie?
I love Charlie, yeah.
And I forgot that it was him who wrote it. And I was just like, yep, of course. Like
So
you're
good.
saying, the infinite jest.
Mhm.
And what's interesting about that too is like, sort of themes within that story is or those correlations between the writer and Charlie is and the puppeteering, right?
Yeah.
How everybody like really just accepts this absurdity,
Right.
in this reality. Maxine immediately accepts that there is a portal, calls him later, is like, let's exploit. It's like, wait, so you
Yeah.
believed what he said? It's on the news and all this stuff, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, it's kind of magical realism in that sense,
it
right? Where
is.
it's
It
just some
is.
sort of absurd reality that everyone is just agreed upon. It's an agreed upon reality.
Right, right.
Which isn't, I mean, that's what's cool about that style of literature and film, that kind of like magical thinking, magical realism. Like like it comments on life as it actually is, but from an absurd way. Like Paul Auster, the novelist, he's got this line about how surrealism is more real than realism because life itself is surreal. Like life is weird.
Right, right.
So to take like a surreal movie like that, where the whole point is that there's like this agreed upon reality that makes no sense. And that's like true of this reality, right? I mean, look at like, I don't know, money or something. You look at like, what's the reality of money? It's literally just paper that we're assigning a value to it, but the value isn't inherent in the paper. And everyone's just like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And it's not
Right.
even paper anymore. Now it's just like numbers on a screen. And we're all just like, yeah, that's cool. That's my value. That makes sense. And then
Right.
there's all this like cultural value that gets built up around it. Like it's an empty center, right? And that's the whole
Sure.
like postmodern zeitgeist is empty centeredness.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That made me think too of the persona or the character Malkovich in the movie, right?
So good.
Because he's also
It's so funny.
so funny. The best. I love him so much. He's one of my
Yeah.
favorite actors. But acting itself is also a form of puppeteering, right? So even him himself, his entire persona or like life was based around playing other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Acting in Shakespeare plays, whatever it may be, with the Hunchback, etc. He's not John Malkovich. Most of his life is spent being a character actor. And his madness is driven by then being puppeted by somebody who is actually a puppeteer, who's really being puppeted by the Mr. Dr. Lex or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
who forces him out and eventually takes over the vessel. So pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
exactly. And it's like,
Yeah.
who's the puppet master? Because the puppet master themselves is a puppet, right? It's like this
Right.
the infinite string is, it's not just your strings that you're seeing, it's then the puppet master strings and their puppet master, and that's God, right? And then it's
Right,
like
right.
almost like who's puppeting God, all that stuff.
Right. Exactly. I
Here's a
don't.
question.
Yeah.
Well, two questions. The first one is why Malkovich? Why not anyone else?
I like that. Yeah.
And then the next question is why? What's with this impulse to be somebody else? I think everyone has felt that, whether in the form of envy or if you're an artist, writer, you come up with characters. You're literally doing that. Catfishing online on social media and stuff like that. I mean, what is the impulse to be someone else? Why? Where's that coming from? And what does it mean?
Right. So number two, I think is just goes into what I was talking about.
Yeah.
We be other people online, all this stuff, so we can find an identification. Those who do not know themselves,
Yeah.
imitate or a copy, So finding a persona, if you don't have, you have a shit life, you haven't had sex in years, you don't have a job, whatever, didn't go to school. While you can become somebody in a video game, in online on Twitter, you can
Right.
become somebody who tells a more successful person that they suck, without zero repercussion against your own personal self. So it's a matter of being able to say that, have that feeling that his wife had. Shit, I can't remember what her name is. Cameron Diaz, where it's like, I finally know who I am, but it's a jest, it's a magic trick. It's not who you are.
Right.
It's a way to be able to say, boom, I know who I am. I'm like finally like whole. I have identification, right? But it's a false sense
Exactly.
because
And
it's not real, right?
yeah, and that's ultimately coming from a place of fear, right? Fear and discomfort, where it's like, well, I'm uncomfortable with my own existence, so if I can step into someone else's or over identify with some role or way of being or something like that or institution, then this is who I am now, and I don't have to confront the fact of my own insignificance or smallness
Right, right.
or mortality even. It's a legacy project.
Right, exactly. And that's essentially what the rich dude was trying to do at the end.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Achieve immortality by
Right.
hopping bodies.
Yeah, you can actually live forever by just continuing to hop through personas, which is pretty wild thought.
Yeah. So why John? Why John Malkovich?
But I'm going to take back the first comment I said.
Yeah.
I think Charlie actually throws out the obvious to fuck with you because you think because Savannah had never seen it. So she watched it with me, and I don't give away movies no matter how many questions you ask me, I will not answer.
Yeah.
But when the Maxine character first gets introduced, she's like, oh my God, he cheats on his wife, And I looked at her and she's just like, oh geez. And that's what Kaufman thinks that's what it is. And I told her, I was like, trust me, there's more layers than just that. And by the end of it, she's just like, oh my God, what is happening?
Yeah.
It's like Maxine is in love with the wife only when she's in John, and also now fucking him, just like, And that's what it is you get set up to think the obvious. It's sort of like a mystery, almost a noir, and then you figure out just like, wow, this is a lot more complicated, a lot more layers. There's actually a 7.5 lore, to this movie.
Right. I like that.
Why John? Why do you think John?
You know what? I don't know. It works, it definitely works. I think that it's perfect with John Malkovich. I can't picture this movie with I don't know, being Brad Pitt or something. That'd be weird,
Right.
Yeah, it just works. I don't know. He's kind of a funny guy, I wonder if him and Charlie Kaufman are just friends too, and Charlie Kaufman's just kind of fucking with him,
Right. It's like, no, I'm going to make a movie called Being John Malkovich. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
People you can't write a movie. People portaling into my head, John.
That's so good.
This is my head, Shorts. I will see you in court.
The chimp with childhood trauma. That shit was so
Elijah,
funny.
dude. So good. So funny that his name is actually Elijah from the family, his chimp family.
Like his chimp parents named him Elijah. So good.
It's crazy too to think like when they're sitting there having dinner, with Maxine finally for the first time, all three of them.
Right.
They're both crazy persons, animals everywhere. He's talking about his puppets, and Maxine's like judging there, but she's the craziest one.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's the master manipulator there, wanting to be obsessed over.
Yeah.
That's, would you call Maxine like a toxic narcissist?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she's a femme fatale.
Right.
Yeah.
Is John Malkovich a noir?
I think being John Malkovich is no, it's not.
I don't know. I think it might be because we were just talking about the mysteries.
That's true. It's not a femme fatale.
Maxine's a femme fatale. It's always dark. There's a bunch of city scenes.
That's true.
The New York cityscape, dark freaking, yeah. There's a mystery to unfold there at the end, There's the evil, rich, old white dude, Yeah.
Man. So I want to, the first time I saw this movie, I was in high school and I took a philosophy class. And then one of the assignments was to watch Being John Malkovich and then submit like a paragraph saying like
nice
what it was about or whatever. And I have no idea what I wrote. I remember I remember being confused,
Yeah.
I think with more context now, and being 31 rather than 17 and like, just more cultural context and film context and all this stuff. It's like makes way more sense. It's like I can actually watch the movie and like make sense of it. But it's still cool though. I mean, the philosophy teacher in my high school, Mr. Kiernan, cool guy. He was like one of the few teachers in that school, because I went to this Catholic school, that was like actually like pushing students to like think outside the box and introduce us to like some bizarre culture and stuff that's going to make us think,
Yeah.
So I do have like a Being John Malkovich does have like a spot in my heart,
Yeah.
And
too bad you can't find your response back then. Just like, yeah, I mean, it was pretty. So Cameron Diaz is pretty hot, but
not really sure what was going on. I guess the part with like all the John Malkoviches was pretty funny. But.
That was funny. Like, I mean, like they're messing around with gender because one of the John Malkoviches was a girl. So,
bro, the John Malkovich who's like in a dress lying on the piano singing.
Oh, right. Malkovich. And then there's like John Malkovich babies and stuff. Dude, that seems wild. Yeah.
Bro, you want to hear my overarching theory for Being John Malkovich?
Hold on. Do you have it locked in?
Yeah, like I know it. It's
okay. I just have one side comment.
Yeah, we can come back to it. Yeah.
That scene, I just realized we're always seeking identification, right? Just like we've been talking about, master's degree, PhD, whatever the case, religious, freaking Mormon, whatever. Always trying to identify with the self, right?
Yeah.
But none of us really can. It's like we really can't. We're aware of our consciousness, but we don't identify with our own consciousness. And it's funny that when he goes into the portal to his own mind, when he comes out, he goes up to Schwartz. The first thing he says is, I have seen something no man should ever see, Schwartz. Freaking, it must be closed forever, because maybe it's honestly a frightening place to be like, oh man, I'm like self-identifying, Jared. Jared.
That's gonna be the whole episode. Jared.
Right, because that the space of actually identify going into your own head to identify as yourself as a category is something that no man should ever see. Schwartz, I'll see you in court. Freaking.
Yeah.
It's horrifying. It's horrifying. Maybe it's horrifying, and maybe that's why we're always consistently trying to displace ourselves or disidentify.
See, this is all a part of my overarching theory, because I found that scene so interesting, and especially that comment that he makes that I saw something no man should ever see.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So here's what I think is really going on in being John Malkovich.
Right.
All right. So first is Narcissus.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, the very first scene is the puppet looking at himself in the mirror and then becoming upset and throwing, a vase at the mirror and breaking the mirror.
Right.
Which, if you listen to my Narcissus episode on becoming human, where I break down the entire myth, this is exactly
days at 6 p.m.
It's it's all about that entire myth is about self-knowledge and seeing the self, and how do you integrate what you've seen and all of that, and breaking past, breaking to the other side of the mirror in this kind of Alice in Wonderland, through the looking glass way. What's on the other side of the mirror, right? So the puppet sees his reflection in the mirror, breaks the mirror, and then sees the strings that are holding him, right?
Right.
Which is, I mean, that's big, right? I mean, that's a spiritual experience, right?
Oh, it's huge. It reminds me, that goes back to some Freud, when you first see yourself, your reflection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To see your patterns, see who you really are, be confronted with who you are beyond identification and beyond categories. Potentially a terrifying thing, but not necessarily, right?
Right.
So throughout it, there's this search for self, and they're seeing themselves everywhere. And in this, just listen to the Narcissus episode. It's like and subscribe, but it's like the whole myth of Narcissus is about like different levels of consciousness, starting with infant consciousness, which is just this state of unity, and then you step into this toddler consciousness, and so on and so forth. But one of the stages of consciousness is seeing yourself reflected back to you everywhere. Like, that's the Narcissus myth, is seeing yourself reflected back. And that's Freudian, because you're projecting your own shit onto all the people around you, right? So in that sense, quite literally, you're not speaking to another person, you're reacting to your own stuff that you're projecting onto that person, right? I mean, that happens very often, especially in intimate relationships. So then to break beyond that, you first need to see that that's what you're doing, that you're projecting yourself onto everything and everyone around you. And that's that scene where he goes into his own mind and then can see the ways in which everyone around him is a mirror for himself, for John Malkovich.
Right.
And then you either see that and you break the mirror, go through to the other side and release your projections and enter into pure consciousness and just receive people as they are, or you continue to project, or you freak out, and that was the worst thing I've ever seen, wish I didn't see it, rather than using it as an invitation to move to the other side.
So you're saying that what he should have done was accepted the pure self, the pure narcissist, the complete entirety of self-centeredness, and then he would be free? Or was it the identification of such narcissistic tendencies that he tried jumping off the balcony? Well,
it's the angle that you do it
out,
Yeah, it's the angle that you do it from, right? Because take like a narcissist in the way that we use the word, in our culture now, is seeing yourself everywhere and reveling in that, loving that, using it, whatever, all of that stuff, right? But the actual myth, narcissist and narcissism are actually two different things. And the actual myth It was you see that projection, you see yourself everywhere, and then you move through it to the other side, to a higher level of consciousness, because we're all projecting at some level, right? I mean, everyone is a narcissist in one way or another, because we see ourselves at the center of our own universe. Everyone's John Malkovich.
Right.
And then to accept it, process it, and move beyond it, that I think that's
Okay.
level consciousness.
So in the becoming human, like in Subscribe
Yeah.
context.
Yeah. In that perspective.
Okay. In that perspective, then yes.
That's what I'm saying. In that perspective. I'm not saying
that he's actually, yeah, I like that a lot, because man, you just figured it out, because what the room was actually doing was showing him all versions of who he was and of the self, the waiter, the female, the baby, the man, the old man, the young man, the middle age, the singer, right? Every categorization of who he was and nurtured to be
exactly
was there. And if he actually, instead of freaking out and being like, no, I'm not going to accept these categories, if he were to just be like Malkovich, and shook all their hands, gave them hugs and everything,
exactly,
maybe he would then become one Malkovich again, and the portal would close.
Yeah, exactly. Then the portal would close.
And we just wrote John Malkovich too. And would he reach out to Charlie Kaufman immediately?
For real.
I've always thought it could be a really good sequel, because freaking Cusack is in the kid's mind,
Love Cusack. See, and think about that, because again, we're always projecting our values onto people, right? I mean, if I go into a room full of 20 people, and I talk to each one of them, I'm not fully just going to accept them as they are. I mean, ideally I will, but I'm going to judge. I'm going to project my value system. I'm going to admire some and revile others,
Right.
And that's how I feel about someone else says way more about me than it does about that person, right? And that's the Malkovichian problem. Right.
It's also a very vulnerable place to self-identify.
Right.
And it's literally killing parts of yourself. So it's like self-infliction. It's sadomasochistic behavior to self-identify sometimes, because for me, for instance, like if I were to go into the Jared Vitch room, I would see, probably, and stayed there, eventually identify the cigarette smoking Jared, or the lazy on Tuesday afternoon Jared, or whatever,
Right,
sometimes you got to kill those Jareds or Malkoviches or parts of yourself, but it's literally cutting away a part of who you are, right? For better in the long run, but that doesn't matter, Say I got gangrene in my foot. Right. It's not going to feel good to cut the foot off.
And I don't think there is any.
But if I don't cut it off, I'll die of disease. So.
Right. And I don't know if there's cutting out. I think there's resolution, but I don't know if there's cutting out, because let's say you're in the Jaredvich room. You try and cut a piece out, that piece gets angry. It's still part of you. It lashes back. I mean, this is like Freudian, repression, and then what you're repressing manifests in a worse form, because of the repression, right? Because of trying to cut it out. So I'm wondering, the earlier thing you said was go into the Jaredvich room, go into the Malkovich room, and shake all their hands. Oh, hello, Malkovich, yes, Malkovich, and just vibe with all of them. And then what's that experience? And then is that how it dissolves?
Into one, right? But but still, though, I think that there are parts in the Malkovich room, that you would want to get rid of. And maybe that's the only way to get rid of them, is by shaking hands and getting to know yourself first,
Right.
and getting to know all of them.
Exactly,
So you know which ones aren't invited to the Malkovich Jaredvich party.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then why, okay, that statement, I've seen something that no man should ever see. Why is it so horrifying to, I mean, of course, in that like hyper absurdist situation where you're literally seeing your own face on everyone's bodies. I mean, that is scary. It's absurd,
Right.
But in the sort of reading, the sort of becoming human-esque reading that we're giving it, or just even psychological reading of the thing, why is that so horrifying to see the way in which we're projecting onto everything around us, to see ourselves reflected back to us? Why is that so horrifying?
I think because I think that the obvious answer is we repress negative parts of our persona. And that's literally the process of projection, especially in like the Jacques Lacanian, way, as we are, literally casting our bad selves, or the bad parts of who we are, the toxic things that we do to our bodies, whatever. We'll project those feelings and thoughts onto other people, So like, take for example, if there's like a really shitty dad or something, and then he saw somebody, a dad, he was like at the store or something, and he saw a dad do something shitty, like his kid tripped and he didn't help him up or something. Then that dude goes and tries to fight that guy or something. It's just like, you're the fucking worst, dad, whatever, you piece of shit,
Right.
Because what's harder for that individual is to look inward and be like, it's self-criticism. Yeah. It's so hard to do that, to look into the mirror and be like, fuck, I'm a piece of shit in this area and I need to change. It's so hard for us to self-criticize, because you feel bad. And it hits true, because that's one thing about criticism, is sometimes it hurts, but sometimes it's just petty and it's not true, so it doesn't matter that much. It's like, man, that's a fucked up thing to say, but I realize that this book is badass.
Right.
It's when they hit the truth button. That's when it hurts the most. Just like, oh man. But that's when that's looking inward and self-identifying. Well, shit, every single criticism is a truth. So it's duly painful to do so. So I think a lot of people just straight up avoid it.
Yeah. Truth can be painful.
Where it's a lot easier to just be like, subconsciously be like, judge people for like, I don't know, smoking too much crack or something like that, and like, instead of being like, shit, I need to stop smoking cigs,
Well, that's the irony of our entire society, right? I mean, we're constantly projecting and scapegoating others, right? I mean, rather than address my own shortcomings, I'm going to try and cut out I'm going to project those shortcomings onto another person, a group of people, whatever, and try and cut that person or group out, thinking that by eliminating them, I'm going to eliminate that shortcoming.
Yeah, without yourself.
Realizing, like, no, it's within myself.
Or to be like, man, I'm a really good person because of what I said at Target, or because I told off that person for not tipping the barista. Just like, yeah, dude, but you literally short all your workers on their pay every month.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. What's that phrase? There's like a specific Freudian phrase for that. I forget, because there's like, I think he had like a set of like 9 specific phrases, like projection, displacement.
Right.
That one might have been displacement, where you're literally displacing your stuff onto someone else. I think it was something like that.
Right, exactly.
Either way, yeah.
And then that's the crazy thing with John Malkovich, is he wants to return to like I'm back, you know, like going back to him being an actor and stuff is he wants to be able to control his ability to become another person, you know, to essentially become a puppet master, just like he's being the puppet, you know.
Which is control issues, right? I mean, if anyone wants to be a puppet master, it's fucking control issues.
Right.
You want to control other people. You want to
also think about like the sadness of the narcissist, the toxic narcissist, not totally becoming human narcissist, but like, you know, he's there in the street in New York, like so into his art in his head and his like sadness of his life and self-wallowing.
Fuck yeah.
And he's so like self-absorbed and self-centered that he's like disturbing some little girl on the side of the street, gets punched out by a dad, you know.
Bro, and that's okay. And I think the movie, at least for me, and now you're making me see some of my own truth right now. But watching the movie, the first
I have seen nothing no man should ever see, Jared.
The Jared bitch.
I will see you in court. Yeah.
But the first scene was the narcissist scene, you know, puppet looks in the mirror. And then the next scene is him. What's John Cusack's character's name?
Shorts.
Yeah, Schwartz he's lying in bed, moping around, and then his wife, his partner, is like, hey, maybe like it's time for you to go get a job. You've been just kind of moping around, and then he's like, no, I need to like continue working in the puppet studio. And I'm like, fuck, dude, I saw a little bit too much of myself in that. To be totally honest, I was like, oh God, I think Ash and I have literally had those conversations where she's like, hey, maybe you just need a job. And I'm like, I'm an artist. No.
Like, you don't understand. I'm a puppeteer.
I don't understand. And then he's sitting on the couch watching the news, and there's like a 60-foot Emily Dickinson puppet with this like hyper successful puppeteer, and he's just like, it's a gimmick. It's just a fucking gimmick. And I've done that with like, I see, you know, hyper successful artists doing like crazy murals and stuff, and I'm like, that shit's a gimmick, bro.
I'm watching CBS Sunday morning, just like, man, fuck this guy with spray paint. Come on.
Fuck, yeah, maybe I should go get a job. God damn it.
And maybe that'll just solve your and Lottie's problems.
Yeah, exactly.
If you could get a job, Shorts. You're being a short.
Son of a bitch.
But that's one thing about idle hands though, because I've been there too. And if a number of my relationships ended earlier on in my life because I was a fucking lifelong college student, you know, making $12,000 a year knocked up style, just like, you understand, I'm gonna be a doctor one day, which is true, but also like, man, I used like 15 years to just live on student loans and like,
bro, and that is like
study the English language, you know.
I'm feeling a shift there, being okay. I'm turning 32 in like a little over a month, and like I feel the pressure. I feel the pressure of that, where it's like, damn, bro, like I'm, you know, like I like what I'm doing. Like I think it's fucking cool that I'm like creative and doing all this stuff. I think it's important and all of that. But there's also like this self-criticism side that's just like seeing some friends getting married and buy houses, all that sort of stuff, you know, and it's like, oh shit, like am I doing it right? You know,
shorting it, the narcissist, the toxic narcissist out there. No, I mean, I've been there too, and like I've definitely shortsed it out, and you know, for better or worse, I think with my music for sure. Just like one relationship, I was just like, I literally told the girl, just like, she told me she didn't understand our music. I was young man, of course, in my defense, but like broke up with her. You're just like, short, she didn't understand me.
Yeah, you don't know complexity
of who I was. Just like, dude, come on, you know, and like I wasn't willing to put in the time either to be, you know, the Emily Dickinson puppeteer, like in terms of like, you know, I was willing, but I'm just saying like I could have done that and done other things.
Yeah.
Like a lot of my time spent, honestly, the only time Shorts becomes like a successful puppeteer is when he actually gets his ass to work and like, you know, is in John Malkovich's body, who's done a lifelong, you know, of work to get to where he was to do all that shit too, you know. So
yeah, I found that interesting because apparently Schwartz actually was a genius artist and a genius puppeteer. He just didn't have access to an audience, right? I mean, early on, until he goes into Malkovich's body, because early on he's playing on the freaking sidewalk getting punched out by dads.
Sure.
And then just his skill level, his puppetry creativity and skill level did not change. The only thing that changed was now that he had the mask of a Hollywood actor.
Right.
Everyone was like, "Oh, you're a genius. I see it now."
But it was more, it was that, yes. But it was also him finally having drive. John Malkovich gave him drive, gave him motivation to go out and become a puppeteer. Even in like the documentary, it says John had his first performance. He's like, "I'm John Malkovich.
Yeah.
It's me. I really am." You know, yeah. And like he worked himself up, but in Shorts, he wasn't willing to do that. He was just like sad all the time, going home to his wife, like, you know, getting beat up on the streets and like, you know.
See, I wonder that about thinking about, okay, my own art stuff. Man, because I think this movie's a mirror. At least for me, it was. I think that's kind of the joke of the movie too. It's like the movie itself is a portal into other ways of seeing and other lives and all that. But freaking, like, okay, let's say I was just given, without even trying, just given, I don't know, this big wall to make a mural on in like downtown Denver or something, or downtown New York City, right? Whatever. And not just me, I think, you know, a lot of people, it's like probably step up to the challenge, you know, because that opportunity's there and it's there and it's available. And it's like, okay, you know, I think people do step up if they're given the space and opportunity to do so. I mean, I saw that with my high school students, where like a lot of kids who just their entire lives felt shit upon by the system, the education system. And then if you just give them some encouragement and the space to do something well and do it cool, they're going to step up and they're going to do it. You know, I saw that happen a bunch. So like, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking about like potential success and potential creativity and how that balances out with like opportunity, you know? And it's like, well, I guess you have to like create those opportunities for yourself, you know, first. That's like half the battle, because once you're there, you've already succeeded, kind of, you know?
Right. And it's interesting too, if we think about the movie, the only way he became a successful puppeteer ultimately is because he got that job being a filer, which led to him meeting Maxine, finding the portal, going into John Malkovich, becoming John Malkovich, and then doing his puppeteering through that, you know, all those means. But no, Schwartz would have never went through any of that experience if he would have just been at home, like pissed off that, like, you know, he never got an opportunity or whatever. Nobody,
like in his studio making
him and like,
right. Damn, that's crazy, because I've even done like the street vendor thing, you know?
Right.
In a different way. I mean, that dude's like literally just on the corner, you know. I'm going to like but it's great. Like even in a few hours later, I'm going to go do one of the like art walks in Denver, which is cool. You know, it should be fun.
That's cool.
Yeah, a bunch of artists, tent set up and stuff. But it's definitely like feel like on the corner hawking my shit, just be like, hey, you should look at my stuff, you know?
I think there's something to say about envy, right? It's interesting, that whole scene. And I think there's also something to say about don't do something like else. It can be a detriment to your true passion, you know, your true art, your life in general, you know, and then your art anyone's art, not just you, like the royal you, can be then become muddled or toxified because it becomes like a toxic object in your life,
Yeah.
Whereas, which causes this like self-wallowing freaking Schwartz on the side of the street,
Right.
who's so devastated he won't even have, and he doesn't realize what he has. That's another thing that pisses me off about Schwartz. Savannah brought that to the attention to. Cameron Diaz is way hotter than Maxine.
Oh my God, yeah.
And like, yeah, she might be a little kooky, but she like wants to have a kid with him and everything. Like,
Right.
if he would take opportunities that were also in front of him, his motivation to then, further pursue or do a freaking, really cool art walk or try to find a producer or whatever for his puppet shows or whatever, he would probably be motivated to do so if he had a kid with Lottie and freaking,
Right.
wasn't such a freaking sniveling little freaking short.
Right. And his stuff is so it's very self-indulgent. And so is the work of like David Foster Wallace, so is the work of Charlie Kaufman, but Charlie Kaufman does it more consciously and makes fun of himself for it. But it's like his performance when he's like in the body of John Malkovich and the Maxine's like, show me your puppet performance, and he's like, what now? Like with John's body, and she's like, yeah.
Right.
And it's the most self-indulgent, pedantic shit ever, right? He's like dancing around in his apartment to like piano music and breaking the mirror, and it's just so like, it's like, ew, like stop,
Right.
And then she's like, oh, you're a genius. But that's like the tortured artist thing, right? That's the trope of the tortured artist is this person who's mentally ill and just sort of like going crazy in public.
Right.
Like, oh, it's so beautiful,
Hold on, Dolly's calling me.
Yeah, sure. So here's a question. So I hung out with this dude the other day in Denver who I just met through doing art stuff, who happens to be from Long Island too. This artist guy. And it was interesting because like he was saying he feels that the tortured artist thing is like worth the art that gets produced, and this dude, I don't know him well, hung out once, but seemed like a tortured artist type, just sort of like whatever, seemed like he was struggling with some stuff, but then was like, oh, it's all worth it because, I get to be tortured and then it makes my art better or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know, bro. Can't artists also just be happy, like, and stable?
Right.
I don't know. Is it a necessity for there to be pain and suffering for good art to be produced,
Well, and then there's the defilement of, I guess that's a commentary also made in Malkovich too, is the happiness then he gets when he's successful. He's a happy dude, he's making a lot of money, whatever the case,
Yeah.
And he's not tortured. Guys watching a documentary on himself, and he's with Maxine, and she's pregnant with his kid. So he thinks, So when he was at his most successful is when he was a happy dude. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying.
Like, wait, when Schwartz was in Malkovich's body having all that success.
Yeah, when Schwartz was in Malkovich's body. Yeah. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying with like the tortured artist. It's kind of honestly just like a toxic, narcissistic category of nobody understands me. The only thing that understands me is my art, and it's so good because I'm so distraught and distressed and this and that. When really nobody really gave a shit, liked Schwartz's art too much back then.
Right.
And and who's the artist to say how good their art is when it's, you know what I'm saying? Like it's more it's more of an expression of the South. It's not just like, and the true artist, right, actually is kind of like revolted by a lot of the pain art that they have to make. Like Dion had this one painting that I took out of the dumpster that he painted when he was breaking up with his girlfriend from college. And he didn't like that painting. He didn't even like looking at it, and it wasn't one of his best paintings. A lot of people, he didn't get like the most comments he told me on that painting, anything. His most successful paintings where people are like, man, this is beautiful. And paying thousands of dollars for his shit. Usually in times of his life where he was doing something good for himself, and was actually self-identified in the Dion Vich room, said what's up to the identified the Dion Schwartz, kicked him out of the room, and then was, produced a work of art that was a cohesive self of who he was, more of a cohesive self, because the toxic narcissistic artists that nobody cares about me, this and that, they don't self-identify. It's they think they know themselves because nobody else does, but nobody else knows them because they don't know themselves either. It's kind of like friends we've had that are like, I don't have an identification or this and that. It's like, yes, you do. You're categorizing yourself with this sad boy or sad girl or this or that, and really, I truly believe that like the only way that we could be like, yes, this is like art that could only be made through like some crazy like, trauma pain. It's not from some dude who like has a pretty nice apartment on Central and like says that he's sad because, like this guy that you met in Albuquerque. It was like, oh, I gotta be sad for my art. It's like, Dostoevsky and shit in Russia where there was like bread lines and like their lives were literally like fucking pain, and these books came out, or like The Grapes of Wrath and shit, It was like these freaking people breastfeeding to survive and shit. That's not to say that the people's need to discount other people's pain, but I think you get what I'm saying.
I do. No, I entirely do. Yeah, because I think it's almost like latching. It's an identification thing. You're totally right. Where it's like, okay, Dostoevsky or something, right? Dude wrote very pained novels, right? But that's because he was in a pained situation, which sucks. That's not great. Right. But that doesn't mean that, okay, now every artist who makes something worthwhile has to be Dostoevsky and has to be in that pain. I mean, if that dude were in a happier situation, he probably still would have made incredible art. It just would have had a different flavor to it.
Sure. Exactly. Yeah. And many of our favorite artists, I would say the majority of them actually had like pretty favorable circumstances, Yeah. And even like a tortured soul like Carver, right?
Yeah.
He wrote some of the most beautiful shit when he was with the woman he wasn't supposed to be with, got divorced, was an alcoholic,
Yeah.
But the art he was most proud of, and the work I love reading the most, is the work he met when he met Tess Galler, his final wife, his true love of his life. And they were like, he stopped drinking and like really became clear in his artistry. And like he got a professorship and started working and teaching. And they said he became a really good teacher and shit. And fuck, like, Ultramarina and those books of poetry they're beautiful.
See, yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, because when I think of like my own drawings and stuff, and it's like, I still have a lot to learn. There's so much growth to be had and, progress to be made. But it's like when I think of like I draw better when I'm in a good mood,
Right.
When I'm just hanging out, listening to music, nothing too heavy on my mind. And I'm just hanging out and it's flowing and it feels good and it's an enjoyable hobby. And then maybe take a picture of it, send it to a friend, whatever. It's like, that's fun. That feels good.
Right.
But when it's when I'm feeling down and low on energy and confused and kind of distorted about my life and what I'm doing,
Right.
that's when I actually don't feel that creative then I just feel fucking stuck in the mud, then
Right.
and then it's like, even if I force myself to pick up the pencil just so that I'm getting my practice in, it's not coming out great, it's forced, it's not, you're not flowing, it's so I think happiness actually is probably more conducive for most people. I mean, there are those Dostoevsky, Hemingway types, whoever, who are like,
right,
really do thrive in that shit. I don't. Who wants to?
Right. Or like a Jackson Pollock, where you're literally just like an alcoholic, like
it's fucking bananas,
addict. You're imprisoned in it, and a lot of these people that live these existences, they kill themselves, or like it's a fucking tragedy. I wouldn't. We only live once. I wouldn't want that to be my story.
And it's, what do we want from life? Because it's like, okay, like would you choose? Okay, all right, you die, right? You die, and then you're floating in the in-between realm, and then whoever shows up, God, Jehovah, universe, the goddess, doesn't matter, shows up and is like, okay, turns out reincarnation is true. Here's your set of options. You get like 3 options. 1, you're going to be this total genius artist who everyone's going to remember forever. You're a freaking rock star, whatever. You're going to have this really wild, really romanticized, glamorous life, but you kill yourself at the end, right?
Right.
Indicating that, it wasn't a healthy life.
Right.
And then the other 2 options, one's like, I don't know, just like maybe some true difficulty and poverty and you're waiting on bread lines, but then there's a lot of like wisdom and lessons from that or something. And then the last one's kind of middle of the road. You're just a regular dude, middle of the road, work a job, get a house, you have your friends and family, and your highs aren't too high, but your lows aren't too low. You're just kind of, you're like, all right, you're cruising, you have a couple kids, whatever. Like, which one would you choose,
If you put yourself, okay, imagine those 3 people, 3 scenarios, freaking passion, the Temptations of Christ. What the hell was that movie? Hey, Jesus.
That fucking, oh my God. Yeah, the last, or what? Yeah, the last temptation.
Last temptation of Christ. Yeah.
Hey, Jesus, come on.
Hey, we're prophesying over here.
Jesus, we'll talk about it. Calm down, all right?
Hey, he's from Southie Judea, right?
Oh man.
If we were to go to the deathbed of all 3 of those scenarios, right?
Yeah.
The deathbed, and we were to talk about the person. Okay, so we go into room 1. Dude's alone in his apartment in freaking, Albuquerque, Rhode Island, Santa Fe, New Mexico, whatever it is, right? Just like some really nice like artwork around his house, and like some success, freaking people love his art, and he's like selling in a gallery, has a lot of money, but has to maintain this persona, is single, nobody around, fucking just got finished yelling at some old lady for cutting him off in traffic.
Right.
Freaking has been drunk for the 65th time in a row. Yeah. And is about to die alone. And freaking, his person that he thinks likes him really doesn't like him because he doesn't really like her or him or whatever. They're not calling. His freaking agent's pissed and he's by himself. We'll ask him, is it worth it then that, 100 and 800 rich white people who are in a small bubble know about you and have your artwork on their wall?
Dude, oh my God. Yeah, I have something to say about that.
And then
yeah,
we grab this guy's hand and say, okay, let's go visit. I'm not going to do 3 for sake of time, but let's go visit the middle dude.
Yeah.
Who, had some success, whatever, as just a regular guy, whatever. Oh, we'll go to the breadlines guy. But fuck it, let's do 3. We go to the breadline. We tell that guy, come with us, freaking, Christmas Carol style. We go to the breadlines guy, he's there, bitter. His wife died of cholera.
Yeah.
His 2 kids died when they were younger of a starvation. His brother died, who he loved so much, but he's on a plane from Russia to New York in a new coat to go meet with some stupid rich, penguin executive that finds his War and Peace novel so exotic about the destruction of his own personal life.
Yeah.
And they want to profit off of it. And he's about to have a heart attack in the plane, alone.
Yeah.
We get that guy and we tell him, all right, let's go visit our middle guy self. Go visit the middle guy self. He lives on, Denver Street or freaking Osage Kiva Road over here. He's an older dude, gray hair, just like in his cardigan. And we go in there and he's super stoked to meet all of us, the artists or whatever, and this and that.
Yeah.
Just wants to see pics and stuff or whatever. But his deathbed, we tell him, like, you're going to die like this week of, the cancer or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is going to be your deathbed today. Is he going to want to hang out with us? Is he going to want to look at the art or whatever? He's going to want to call Dalton and his wife and the people that love him, and he's going to cry and have an emotional experience, not a sad, tragic one where he lived. Right. And he's going to love these people, and they're going to fucking cherish his artwork, people that matter, forever. And we're all going to say, but what about like your need to be an artist? And he says, come with me. And he takes them back, and everybody's like, man, this is a nice house. Freaking takes him back to his studio. And then in the back in his studio, he's just got fucking a life's work of the most beautiful drawings and fucking, portraits and pictures of his family and his dogs and shit and all this stuff. A fucking corpus, that he was able to do, and some success, some shows, whatever, was able to do some shit, Yeah. But ultimately, on his last day of life, he's going to feel fulfilled and want to spend time with and feel loved, like the back to the Carver thing, to be loved, to be beloved, and to feel beloved, and he'd be the only scenario that would actually have that in his final moments. So
right. See, and I guess this is almost like well, actually, man, my mind's going a bunch of different places.
Let's go back to your thoughts after scenario 1.
So, well, okay, in
kind of rich dude, but like 800 white people have his paintings on his wall. Dude,
well, my thought with that was
psoriasis of the liver.
Yeah, I'm taking art classes at this place in Denver, which is it's really cool. It's been good taking these classes, and the guy who teaches them, he's got a lot of success, interesting dude. He's from Iraq originally, and then left Iraq and studied painting in Florence, Italy, and then was in Russia studying like the Russian school of painting, like all of, interesting life, and then lands in Denver, opens up this art school. Good dude. So he was, we were talking about like the marketing and business side of art, and he goes, listen, what you really need to do if you want to make like a career in art, he goes, you need to get in with the rich crowd, of course. And he goes, what's really happening here is that there's people who have so much money that they need to hide that money, tax purposes, whatever. So then they just buy a bunch of art. So they're just hiding their money in art. And then if they need the money or whatever, they then resell it and, liquidate it, whatever. But he's like, that's the crowd. He's like, if you want to make good money in art, like you're saying, you cozy up to like probably not even 800. It's probably a group of freaking 100 people who just have millions of dollars, maybe even more, who just want to hide their money. And then they like kind of like art. So they're just like, okay, I guess that works. Which is like, it made me kind of sad, I was like, fuck. I was like, that's the scene. That's really lame. That's too bad.
And if you're going to be an indie artist, right, going back to becoming human, smash that subscribe button. Freaking, well, then you're controlled by the mass and the populace. You become a digital artist, essentially, whether you're using digital means or not. You're reliant on a resource that is social media or your Instagram or, your indie scene.
Right.
But really your indie scene dictates what you put and how much, how many likes that one picture you drew did or whatever, which ultimately comes down to the fact that art isn't about money, right? And art isn't about pain necessarily. Art is about an expression of the self, and it's something that you want to do because you enjoy doing it, right? It's not to be like, I want this to be a toxic experience,
Yeah.
And
I feel
then
like this conversation's helping me. It's good.
Good.
Yeah.
Me too. It's even like it's just and then what defines success? Just like, okay, so I gave up on this and I gave up on that. And I said, fuck it, to this town and that town and haven't seen my family in this many years or whatever the fuck.
Exactly.
Cool. Like the Onassis and the Barclays are going to fly me to Dallas so I could sell them, 3 paintings for their fucking $100 million ranch that they got through exploitative means, and
dude, and that's the weird thing. Like right now, like I actually do see a path towards having an art career, which is like cool. Like going to this, learning from this teacher and stuff who is himself successful. And like, dude literally said to me, he's like, I know the way. Like, I'll show you the way. It's like, you can do it. It's not that hard. Right. It's like, he's like, it takes time and effort, but it's like, he's like, it's a series of steps. He goes, I did it and I'm successful. He goes, whatever, just do the steps and you'll get there,
Right.
May take a couple of years at least, but he's like, you'll get there, whatever. And I was like, damn, yeah, that's like, the path. It's literally right there. And it's the path that I've been trying to, materialize for myself in the past like few years, where it's like, oh shit, here's some guidance, here's some actual guidance to do the thing that I thought I wanted to do. Right. And now that I'm being presented with it, I'm like, well, yeah, but there's all of these other pulls of just like, well, I want to be closer to family. I want to, have a healthy balance where I'm, maybe making some more regular money, just doing a normal job.
Right,
and then that frees up, energy and some, at least energy to make art and just do it for fun rather than as this like stressful, career driven thing,
or even be able to do it at all. Like, I'm sure there's times recently, even with, whatever, that you, like you said, you don't even want to draw. Just like shit,
Right.
like being in a bad place or like making like belly decisions or whatever have actually made me not want to create. You know, whereas like, you know, if you were able to conquer other things in your life, whatever, well, that would unlock your art even more so, one would argue, you know. So.
Right. And it's like, and also appreciating that it's like, what is art really? Well, it's connection, right? It's a way of speaking with one another. And it's like, you know, you have like a bunch of my art pieces, a couple of my friends who just got married in Idaho, they have a couple of my art pieces. I've, you know, a couple of friends on the East Coast who have a couple of pieces. And it's like, that feels good. I'm like, oh, wow, these people that I care about and who care about me, it's like, they're, you know, they're honoring the stuff I'm trying to do. It's not about, you know, this random ass person. And I have sold it. I sold the drawing for $1,000 once. It felt really good.
Yeah.
Twice. And it's like, cool, you know, who cares? I mean, whatever.
And you did that though in a time where you were like, okay, I'm not gonna like live this like categorized freaking, I must live on this side of the Albuquerque and I must not be single for this long and complain about these things and in order to be a successful artist, right?
Yeah.
You ended up making more like the most money you've ever made from a show when you like moved in with a girl, gave love a chance, and freaking were like in a different town and like working. And you know, and I'm not saying like causation is correlation. I'm just saying you were in a good spot in your brain. Listen to the episodes, Jared to Jared, right? The earlier ones, like, you know, it's not like your most successful financial part of your artistic life came when you were in the dumps, when you were at your lowest. It actually came when you were, you know, making moves, positive, right. And whatever the future may hold, those are the feelings in the moment, right? You know, so
that's cool. I like that, man. Life, it's hard to figure out what to do with this thing, you know.
I know. Same here. Hey, man, I'm in a constant state of just like, you know, what happened, why,
how would I get
and then also like appreciating too, like, you know, the other day I met my dad for lunch. I had office hours and like I was explaining to him my day and I was just like, listen, like, cause now I have my recliner, my full recliner lazy boy in my office. I have a little mini fridge I got at Walmart, snacks, Nutter Butters, a coffee machine. I got IT to give me a new computer. They don't give anybody a new computer with 2 monitors.
Yeah.
Freaking I went and got a Bluetooth. Like I literally almost went to sleep watching the league in my office for office hours. Like and then I was like, well, I'm gonna go for a walk. Went for like 3 walks. So beautiful there. And then like met my dad for lunch and then went and taught for an hour and 15 minutes. And that was the end of my day.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You know, but then there's other times where I'm like, what did I do? Like, what? This is the worst. I have student debt. I don't get paid enough. My students emailing me. Freaking bosses are jerks. Whatever. This is Game of Thrones. What's happening? You know, all the faculty are losing it. We're just like, you know. And my dad, some old man wisdom, was just like, listen, he literally told me after I explained my day, he's like, remember times like this when you're, you know, complaining about times like that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I mean, because I think it's more about internal mindset or whatever, internal circumstances than it is about external circumstances. Because like, no matter how we set up our external circumstances, we're going to have our dissatisfactions, our things we complain about, sadness, whatever. And it's never going to be perfect, you know, ever. So to try and insulate ourselves against pain essentially by like trying to create this perfect life, it's just not going to happen. I mean, you look at like Malkovich, even when he has all that success, Schwartz does in Malkovich's body.
Right.
But even that, the success is very fickle, right? He has this wild success, but the whole time he's still just oh, Maxine, is this good enough? Do you love me
Right.
yet? Right.
Right,
And
right.
then he ends up losing all of it because it was fickle. It wasn't
Right.
enough. It was
Yeah.
cheap, as glamorous as it was cheap.
Yeah, and it's like what so our goal, like me as I'll like separate me from academia, like as a writer, right? I like to write novels, we try to whatever, is the goal then to be this hollowed fucking John Malkovich, being John Malkovich, where we're a different person and performing on the Emmy stage, or whatever, selling books for Penguin or whatever, but you're really just a performer. You're constantly a puppet of this new categorization, which is fleeting, and you could just lose it all anyways,
And everything's got its exchange rate, right? I mean that's a weird thing now. I feel like I'm realizing that's like every single thing, just because of the nature of the society we live in, is kind of slimy. It's like, okay, you can become a professional artist, right? Really, really romantic and beautiful. But it turns out that you're just this like glorified object for rich people to hide their money with. Like,
Right,
whoa,
right.
that sucks.
Exactly.
Or, okay, academic stuff. It's like, also really, really honorable endeavor. It's like you're pushing thought, you're writing a lot, all this great stuff, teaching kids, really wonderful. But then there's all the just like really dumb, I don't know, hierarchies within the department and infighting and people just like henpecking because their egos are too big or they're insecure about their number of books they published or whatever. It's like I think there's just a level of kind of sliminess that enters all realms as being a human, and to accept that and live with that and be okay with it.
Well, then I think that therein lies the importance of going to the Jaredvich room and being like, what do I want? I want to introduce myself to the Jaredvich. That is like making this room the best, and I want to like identify with all the best parts of myself and find happiness, is gonna make you happy, like never working again, and like being able to be like in a year or in 6 months or in 6 years or 9 years, whatever, it'll make it that much sweeter to be like, I'm a rich man now because I didn't work, and I did it on my art. Like, I'm a true artist because I'm rich now because I just right. Or like, but then the truth of that scenario is, well, you just, somebody discovered you and now you became a pawn of you're essentially a money launderer for like 8 rich families in Texas and in California and in Santa Fe. Was a lifelong of that. And then now what, you're allowed to not live that life anymore, and you can go get a dope house in Las Campanas and get married and like have a relationship, and like, well, then what happened to your art? It's going to turn it, if that's all you categorize yourself as, then what the hell, what are you going to create now then, right? It's sort of like this all like this, it's honestly like a capitalism. I hate bringing up capital, just like you said. It's so grimy, but it's like a mindset, a theory of that, of like, if I suffer enough and keep the categorical persona of the nobody understands me, I get punched on the side of the street, shorts artist.
I'll break through. Right. And it's
when really you're actually like, just like we were saying a couple weeks ago or last week, like the enlightened, when you finally find nirvana or enlightenment, well, you're actually have found the most categorized, objectified version of a self that anyone can ever find. Like, you're not free, you're actually the most imprisoned person on the planet Earth if you actually think you've like found nirvana through a religion, organized religion, you know what I mean? So if you think like the only way to true art is through like exploitation of the South, then you're like true. Well, you're actually becoming the most categorized person and like to the system.
You're in the
person,
Gilded Cage
artist that there is. You're no better than AI. At that point.
Oh god damn! Wow. Yeah.
Crazy.
Fuck, man. All right, I think that's it. All right, it's time.
That's
it. What do you want to do? I mentioned the like psychology questions earlier. You want to do them?
Let's do it.
They're cool. All right. It takes 10 minutes. And like whether it's on or off the record, I'll leave that up to you. They're cool questions. But all right. All right. So it's kind of a visualization exercise. So you can either close your eyes, keep them open, whatever you're comfortable with. All right. So picture yourself just standing in a vast open space. Maybe it's a desert, maybe it's just an open field, but you can see out to the horizon, just an open space. So the first addition to this open space that you see is a cube.
Okay.
Now, feel into the cube, like really, really get into it. What's the cube look like? What's its size? Its color? Its material? All that. Can you describe the cube to me?
Large cube, floating in the middle of top of a sand dune, transparent, a little bit clear, almost glass, but a weird, like almost vapored material that you can put your hands into, like a light from a digital computer or something like that, like a digitized. Cool. Yeah.
And you, is it far away from you or is it pretty close to you?
It'd probably take me about 5 to 7 minutes to walk to it, to touch it.
Okay. And it's like big enough that you could like walk inside it, like that big, or what kind of big?
For sure.
Okay, cool.
Probably could fit like a small Volkswagen inside.
Wow. Okay. All right. Nice. All right. So the next question. All right. Now there's a ladder. Where are you seeing the ladder in relation to the cube?
The ladder protrudes on the right side, lays perpendicular to the cube and connects to the top of it, which is slightly slanted, which you have to get inside from the top.
Wait, I'm kind of confused. Wait, so the ladder is like in the cube?
The ladder's on the like attached to the side of the cube and slides down into the sand at White Sands. And then you have to climb up that ladder and you have to get into a latch at the top of the cube. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So the next question is, there's a horse. What kind of horse are you seeing? What's it look like? What's the vibe of the horse? Is it wearing anything? And where is it in relation to the cube?
Rather far away, though I could clearly see the horse's face. The horse is all red, large blue eyes, black mane flowing in the wind, and it's wildly racing towards the cube with red and black clouds surrounding it, which is cutting off the blue sky.
Whoa.
Of the desert.
Holy shit. That's cool. All right. And you're kind of tapping into the next question, actually, because the next part is there's a storm. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. It's, do you see a storm? Which apparently you do.
I do.
Where is the storm? Is it on the horizon? Is it right above you? Is it already storming? Is it a storm that's about to come? Or what's going on with the storm?
I can see the storm from far away, so it'd probably at least be like an hour or two away.
Yeah, it's in the distance.
It's in the distance, but you can see it with the horse. It's on its way.
Whoa. Man, this is going to be wild when I tell you what all this means.
Okay.
So then, all right. So the last part is flowers, or a flower. What do you see? Just what comes to mind when I say flower? Potentially.
I saw a flower bed and just shortly to the right of the cube on the
Okay.
on the slant of the side dune.
Okay. A lot of flowers, few flowers.
A large bed of flowers for sure.
Okay.
Covering the entire side of the sand dune.
Nice. And whoa, that's crazy. And what's like what's the color of the flowers? Are they roses, daisies?
I don't know what type, but I would say like white and purple and blue. The ones that
Okay.
have like those streaks of blue and purple, but all of them are pretty much white.
And what's the feeling around the flowers?
The filling is serene. I see some bees.
Nice. Okay. All right. So here's what's going on. So the cube is your sense of self.
Okay.
Yeah. So what comes up when I say that? Do you think that speaks to your sense of self at all?
So I see myself as a
The cube is the
larger
Jared
than
bro.
life.
Yeah, there you
As
go.
the Jared bitch. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
This big cube on top of the dune, right?
All right. Floating above the dune.
Yeah. All right. And then the next,
A little bit frightening.
a little bit frightening.
Yeah. Foundation style.
Okay.
I mean, it's like sublime, the cube.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Like, I feel all right. So I'm just gonna say what's coming up in my interpretation, but it sounds like
Okay.
it sounds like a fear maybe, or unwillingness to go, the Jaredvich realm. It's like there's something no man should ever see that, right? I mean, there's
Right,
something
right.
sort of like I don't want to get too close to that cube.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
However, then so what's the significance of the ladder?
The latter is friends, friendship, how you relate to your people.
So the
Um,
ladder's directly attached to the cube.
yeah.
And
So
accessible.
one reading of that, it's this like Japanese psychologist who came up with this whole thing years ago. But one potential reading of that is if the ladder is leaning against the cube, the person who's seeing that might feel like their people in their lives are depending too much on them,
Okay.
like leaning on them too
My
much.
ladder is attached to my cube. So
Yeah.
clingers.
Yeah, could be clingers, could be, I don't know, just like very deeply interwoven with the people in your life. Um
So what were they? The cube, the ladder,
the horse,
the horse. What's the horse?
romantic partner.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Weird. Oh
Yeah.
god.
And you're like this fucking demon horse on the horizon.
Yeah, crazed
Bringing
with
the
her black
storm in.
hair,
I was like,
bringing
oh
the storm.
shit, bro.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So
In the storm.
I asked my mom these questions, and she was funny because she's been divorced 2 times and been single for a while. And
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, you see a horse, and she's like, it's so far away. It's like this, like just wild free horse on the horizon. It's nowhere near me. And I was like, wow, that's interesting.
Weird.
So, okay, that's the horse. And then the storm was potential conflict or problems in your life, potential crises.
Christ.
you know,
Yeah.
Which, yours was like out, away. It's, just kind of aware.
Yeah, but
that
it's
not
gonna
always
be here in a
perfect.
couple hours. Yeah.
All right, all right. And then flowers were children, how you relate to children. And you can read that either as, a whole bed of flowers, desire for a whole clan of little Valdez babies.
Right.
The sense around it was peaceful. There be
Sure,
flying
sure,
around it,
sure.
So joy with parenthood and things
Sure,
like that.
sure. I actually did want a bunch of kids once upon a time. It's too
Yeah, I
bad.
remember you saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, that horse and storm, that freaks me out.
Yeah, I got a little freaked out.
Because I could see the face of the horse, but yet it was still far away. It was like very galloping and wild and crazed too. Just like my Savanja. Chicks wild and crazed, bringing the red cloud.
I think it's useful too to think of it not as a specific person, but your relationship to relationship, essentially.
Yes.
It's not just Savannah, but it could also be like I was thinking Hillary, actually. Just
Hillary,
intense,
bringing the red storm, for sure, with their blue eyes, crazy. Yeah. Totally. Camilla too, all of them, you know.
Totally, yeah.
Right. It's it's like the love story is the horse, right?
Yeah.
And the tidings.
Yeah.
Which it's interesting to think too that a lot of my storms in my life have come from that side of the prairie.
Right.
A lot of my peace and serenity comes from just like hanging out with Dalton and being like a dad and, you know, hanging out with my parents, whatever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Weird. Hanging out with all dads. So that's pretty crazy. So what's yours?
So, okay, mine, I got to preface it because
Who did it to you? Or who asked you questions?
I heard it on a podcast.
Okay.
And then I looked it up, whatever. And like, so I feel like mine wasn't totally accurate because I knew the meanings behind them before I got into it. Right. But anyway, I did it with Ashley, and then she asked me the questions. So I don't know, it felt kind of like a little bit forced when I did it.
Okay,
It's natural. But for the cube, mine was like a fucking metal box, like the black box. No one's getting in. Yeah, I was just like, oh god, you know. But again, context, you know, it's like when I was feeling kind of anxious, my mom and Ashley were both in town, and I was feeling, you know, kind of like stop trying to control me, kind of pissed off, you know.
Right.
So I think context matters. But anyway, so it was like this closed up metal box. The horse was like this elven fucking coming out of Rivendell horse, you know. Like,
nice.
Ash said it was over romanticized. But
well, the horror of that being your love story is Galadriel.
Yeah.
Turns out to be the witch and almost kills you for the ring, you know.
Oh god, yeah. Maybe, but the horse was very, you know, it was like a white horse with like, you know, like paint on it, decorative paint, like, you know, beautiful horse.
Which is funny. That's
some braids in the mane.
That's the case with a lot of your relationships too. Other like that one like girl that had like thousands of subscribers and Instagram.
2 Chainz girl, yeah.
Yeah, she was the 2 Chainz video.
Yeah, she twerked in one of like 2 Chainz' music videos or something. So dumb, bro.
That was your unicorn. That was your Rivendell. And the storm.
Well, yeah, I think these like over romanticized, you know.
Did you see a storm or was it stormy?
I actually don't remember. I think the storm was like more on the horizon or something. Now when I think of it, the storms, it's not raining like right on top of me, but it's like it's right there. It's like, you know, when you like look out, especially in New Mexico,
like the clouds are already overhead. It just happens.
Yeah, and it's raining. Like, ooh, I'm about to get caught in a storm.
You can smell it in the air. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then my flowers was I was holding one flower and it had the style of my drawings. Like if I, you know, drew a flower black and white, you know, and yeah. But I don't know. I feel like one day there's a child in my future, you know. We'll see.
On behalf of the Jareds, thank you for listening. Like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We will be back next week. And always remember, there is truth, and there are lies, and art always tells the truth. Even when it's lying. The gentleman will see you next time. Cheerio.